This is Jeff Krisman, and I'm very joyous and tremendously grateful today to have the opportunity to be visiting with Lorraine Goldbloom with VortexHealing. Lorraine, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate this.
Pleasure, Jeff. It's great to see you again.
Absolutely. And today we'll actually be having an opportunity to hear from Lorraine about an upcoming new series that is being referred to as the Finding Presence series. And so what I thought I would do is to ask you a little bit about that and any background information that you might share with folks.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about it. I welcome the opportunity. I enjoy our conversations. So
Absolutely, I do as well.
I've been looking forward to this. And this is kind of my first opportunity to frame the Finding Presence series in this way. See, the series actually began, it's really a framework, what the Finding Presence series is. And I teach something called VortexHealing. And VortexHealing is a healing modality, but it's a lot more than that. And it can be difficult to talk about. So what I do is I always offer healing so that people can have a direct experience of VortexHealing and have a sense of what it can do, which is much better than anything I could say about it. In offering these healings, though, I found that people really resonated when I started talking about and working with specific issues.
Oh,
When
okay.
I created a theme topic of, oh, let's work with the issue of anxiety, for example, or depression or something. You know, there are a lot of universal issues that we all relate to. And when I started talking about those specific issues, and people began to really resonate and sort of understand how the work could help them. And so I began a series that I was calling the Issue Series. And so, you know, different events, I would, you know, offer healing on different themes. I would talk a little bit about different kinds of issues, what they are, to help get people's awareness into that and how they experience it. For example, my experience of anxiety would be very different from yours, although most of us know what anxiety is. We've all known it on some level, but it's a very personal experience. So I would sort of speak about that issue, the nature of it, you know, help people get their awareness into what that's like for them. And I found that that would help to bridge the healing even more deeply, that people would have more of a direct experience of how the work was working for them. And so it became a thing. It became a series of events. It became you know, I've written a couple of articles, and I was invited to be a recurring guest on a cable show called Oneness and Wellness, where we did, you know, a whole series targeting different issues. And it's developed a following because, you know, these are things that we all share. This is part of the common human experience. And I've recently, though, been sort of sitting with the name, you know, my team and I, that we've just been calling it the Issue Series. And we realized it needed a better name because the Issue Series, it doesn't sound like a lot of fun, does it? And I also didn't want to present myself as a psychiatrist or a psychologist, because what we're doing is not traditional therapy in that way. What we're doing is really guiding people's awareness into the nature of the issue, how it holds them so they can awaken out of it, you know, to really bring in the awakening element of what VortexHealing is about. And so that's how things are in the process of evolving.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I was going to ask as well, just in terms of, you know, for folks who maybe they, you know, I know that the word presence is something that I certainly have, you know, I read and see fairly frequently, but I thought it would be very interesting to hear, you know, in terms of within the context of this series and the work that you do, what you might share in terms of what that means to you and to people that you work with.
Yeah, you know, that's an excellent question. Part of the job, you know, in teaching VortexHealing is just to define terms. You know, what does awakening really mean? What does healing really mean? What is integration? And what is presence? And, you know, if you sort of Google it, you know, you have a sense of just existence. But it's come to mean so much more than that. We actually have a VortexHealing class called Presence. It's a particular tool, but it sort of explores the different factors of presence, which we think of as an element of freedom, an element of heart, and an element of sort of beingness. The freedom within presence is a detachment from our issues, from our concerns, from things that sort of take us, away. There's freedom from that, but there's also a heart to it. And heart to me is like a here-ness. It's a location, not in physicality, but in heart. So I'm free here. But I think the quality, the thing that makes presence is the beingness, is the nowness of it, the in the moment of it. So there's, freedom from the things that would distract us, like issues. Issues are a big distractor, in heart now. So the old, Ram Dass saying, "Be here now."
Oh, yeah.
Really speaks to that element of presence. I can be with you here in a relaxed way, without agenda, enjoying the moment, in a sense of presence. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're all looking for, whether we realize it or not. We're sort of seeking the peace that arises from that deep relaxation of just knowingness that we can just be here now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And then I know that, in terms of looking at the big picture of this, what I thought I would also do is ask you just to get a sense of what you're hoping to accomplish with this series, and maybe even kind of, I realize I want to avoid having too many compound questions, but it would also be very cool to hear, what people possibly could expect just in terms of a general flow of this as well.
Yeah, thank you. No, I don't mind compound questions. I talk, it doesn't take a lot to get me going, because I'm excited about the work. And what I've been noticing, and where I'm hoping it will go, is that as people, relate to these issues, it helps them to change their relationship with it. So issues by nature, and that's a good word we'll have to define in a minute, but issues by nature are very isolating. They keep us, in experience of ourselves and away and distracted and all of those things. But when we realize that we all have them and that there are universal issues that we all share, oddly, it can bring us together, and that we realize there is a common human experience. So that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to put our judgment down about our issues, change our relationship to our, dare I say pain, because, as soon as we feel poorly, be it physically, emotionally, psychologically, we sort of step away, we hide, we assume there's something wrong with us, that it's bad. But, if we have the courage to actually just meet whatever that is without fear and judgment, that changes our relationship to that issue. And then we can examine it. We can say, oh, isn't this interesting? In this particular situation, I shut down. In this particular situation, I have noticed that my behavior changes, and I'm open and free and happy over here, but I'm not here. And when we change our relationship to our issues and we can use them as a vehicle for exploration, they then become a gateway, to our own evolution, our own awakening process, our own path to freedom. Then we can meet them. Then we can work with them with whatever tools we have, Vortex Healing or whatever tools that we work with. And that can lead us to freedom. But if we're not willing to meet them, if we're afraid of the pain, then, we can't come through it. We can manage it, we can circumnavigate it, we can deny it, but we can't awaken through it. So my hopes with the Finding Presence series is that we're creating a framework so that people feel safe enough to really meet the issues that they have, the common universal issues that we all have, to be able to meet it, recognize it for what it is. Right? It's an experience. It's a very real experience, but it's not the truth of what you are. Change the framework and use it as an opportunity for growth. And if we can
Yeah.
just, create a framework where people can change that and see that, then the doors really open. And things can really move from there. So that's my hope for the series, and meeting people in different ways. And well, there's just an endless supply of material, isn't there? I mean, issues abound. We all have a lot going on at any given time.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And then and I realize that every one of these installments could possibly, I would imagine that they would be somewhat different. But if anyone was wondering maybe what the structure of this would be, or just in general, maybe what one of these installments of this series would look like, or how it would flow.
Yeah, well, I was hoping I had a vision, that,
Yeah.
we could dialogue about, pick an issue, any issue, anxiety, depression, loss, loneliness, heartbreak. These are all things that I've worked with. And, a little discussion about the general nature of that issue. As I said, really helps people get their awareness into what that is about.
Oh, yeah.
And then I tend to move into, with the structure of the series, a kind of, guided meditation. There's a little question answer, and then kind of a guided meditation that allows people to kind of go into their own experience of that issue. All right. And feel what it is for them, so that they have a lot of awareness. They have an opportunity. They have a safe space to meet it. And then I bring in the highest level of vortex healing tools and just offer what I can. So, I was hoping for a series of meetings, a series of podcast meetings where we could just sort of talk about different things that seem relevant. And then I could, offer the healing, support that vortex healing can bring to the table.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And what I love about this is that, and you had mentioned, and of course, I can certainly identify that there are, with human beings, I realize we're all different, but there does seem to be, there seems to be issues, and sometimes quite a few of them. I
Yeah.
really love how this is an opportunity to really just focus on one at a time. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if that might make things a little less not to assume that would be overwhelming for everyone to go through this process, but I'm wondering if that really helps to just really focus on one specifically
I
at a
think it
time.
does, because once you can clearly define something, it's workable. If
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
clearly define it, then you kind of just feel bad and you don't know why. And it's very hard. But, just defining what an issue is. I mean, to me, my language that I've offered is that an issue is really anything that keeps you out of being present. That's what an
Yeah.
issue is, on an emotional level, on a physical level, on a psychological level. So an example I often use is, if I'm talking with you and I have a stomach ache, that is a distraction to me on a physical level. I'm trying to be present with you. I'm trying to enjoy this conversation, but I have something going on. I have a physical issue that distracts me. So the fact of the matter is, we have all sorts of stuff going on all the time. Our emotional issues are the same. If I had, an argument with someone, a friend, earlier in the morning, and I'm still kind of processing that, oh, they don't appreciate. It's so easy for me to sort of carry that from that moment into this moment with you,
Oh,
and into the
yeah,
next
absolutely.
moment. As a matter of fact, it becomes, if it sits deeply enough, a point of view through which I meet the world and everyone in it. So that's the thing about issues, is they're tricky. They express on multiple levels, because a really good issue is never just physical or just emotional. A good issue, like anxiety or depression, it's going to have a physical issue, it's going to have an emotional issue, it's going to have a psychological thing. And you need a means of dealing with that. With the physical body, it needs to be addressed with all of that. The thing that makes the issues really hard, though, and challenging, is that they create identity. So,
Oh,
for
yeah, yeah,
example, the issue of anxiety, we don't just say, oh, I have anxiety that's affecting my physical body and my mental state. We say, I am anxious. We
yes,
live
yes.
it like it's part of our being. It's a way of ourselves. And that thing in us that believes that I am that's reflected in our language, that identity creates a consciousness component that's very difficult to work with. Very difficult to work with. And so, the reason that vortex healing is so effective is that it has the energetic tools to work on the physical body, to work on the energy system and all of that. But it also has that consciousness component that comes in, that meets that place in us that believes I am anxious, I am depressed, I am sad, all of those things. And it challenges that. And this is where I use the language, it wakes us up out of that story where we believe that that's what we are. Whereas in truth, we're so much more than that. And the difference between I am anxious and I have anxiety that affects me, that's a world of difference. And that's where the identification with our issues becomes so key. And that's why vortex healing is not just a healing modality, but becomes a lineage about awakening. Because we're not just getting better or feeling better. We're actually letting go of those identities that keep us out of the moment, that keeps us from being present. And so there's freedom. Freedom to be in the moment and to know the truth of what we've always been, which is much harder to give language to than issues. I mean, it's hard enough to talk about issues. So maybe that's why where I spend a lot of my focus, because we tend to put our awareness into, what is distracting us. The squeaky wheel gets the oil or whatever that is, that's where we go. And in a way, it's much easier to begin to recognize what we're not, which is our issues and the way that they condition the system, right? We use that word conditioning. It's easier to recognize that that's very real, but that's not the truth of what we are. But when we begin to let that go, and we begin to realize, okay, I am not my anxiety. I am not my depression. I am not my loss. I'm not my pain, and then we kind of relax in the moment and a natural curiosity arises. Well, if I'm not all that, and the stories that get created from that, what am I?
Yes, that sounds like the key.
It is. I mean, that's where the awakening process comes in. Because the answer to that question has always been there in our hearts, and it's difficult to give language to, but, we are divinity in form, we are, so much more than what our limited experience is. And we already know that, but we forget because we're distracted by our issues. So I guess what I'm really creating a framework for here is I'm modeling a process, not a product.
I love it. I love that.
Process to help support people in recognizing their issues and find healing from that, and embrace the process, and see it as an opportunity, not a painful torture kind of, but an opportunity to find the freedom that's beyond the limited experience of what we know. And so it becomes, I believe that, and then when we talk about awakening, another big word, that deserves definition, because, you talk to different people, they'll mean different things by that word. But within vortex healing, we have a very specific term. We refer to something called the core veil. And the core veil is it's sort of an energetic consciousness structure that sits like a veil, in the heart. A veil is something that hides and obscures. And, that place deep in our hearts where we know the truth of what we are, that gets veiled, that gets hidden. And it gets hidden with the identities that get created, our issues of being, anxiety and all of that. And when you sort of put the experiences of those issues together, the key core identity that we live with and live through and experience ourselves as is the main identity of I itself. the I itself, if that
Oh,
makes
yeah.
does
Oh,
it? Okay,
definitely.
good. It's hard because if I were to list all of my issues, and we don't have time, I won't, put that to you. But
I
if
can
I
identify.
am, this, I am that, and the other thing, I am my loss, I am my anger, I am my hurt. They all have that sense of I that anchors them in place. So you can think of the healing work that we do as dealing with the anger, the depression, the loss, the hurt. But when that I gets shaky and we question that experience, when that core veil that's created by that sense of I comes down, we in Vortex Healing describe that as the beginning of the awakening process.
Oh, okay.
We're
Yeah.
no longer
Yeah.
seeing things through this construct of being an isolated individual in an experience of life. There is more of
Yeah.
a direct experience of life playing through form.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And as someone who's been on the path for many years, I know that, in terms of, wanting awakening and wanting healing, what I love about your approach with this is that it's about shedding light on the actual issues that can get in our way of those things in different ways. And yeah.
Yes, thank you. And in a way, they become one and the same, because the ultimate healing is the awakening, recognizing that issue for what it is,
Yeah.
and that's not the truth of who you are. And, of course, the ultimate awakening is the healing, the recognizing that, even though there may be stuff happening in the physical body and the system, it can never touch the truth of what you have always been. And so
Yeah.
they really do come together as one thing. So naturally, in talking about healing and working with issues and bringing space to that, the awakening process is something just unfolds, naturally through that, because it's already there. The awakening
Yeah.
is not something that you learn or you attain or that you get through a book or a class or a teacher or a lineage. It's the recognition of what we have always been. And so we're just kind of clearing the decks,
Ah,
of
yes.
the issues that distract us. And so giving language to the issues takes a lot of the power and the fear out of them.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I was going to ask you as well, and I don't know if this resonates or if this makes sense, but I was wondering too, do you find just in the work that you've done over the years with people, with this healing modality, that do you find that these people sometimes discover that awakening and healing is about something so much different than maybe their thoughts or notions about what it is or what it should be or what it looks like or feels like?
Always, because we can't help but have our preconceived ideas of what awakening will be like for us. I mean, we can imagine anything, except a reality without us in the center of it.
Ah, yes.
And so, when we imagine ourselves awake, we imagine ourselves, omniscient, with whiter teeth, 10 pounds lighter, we imagine ourselves better. And it sounds
Yes.
ridiculous to say like that, but that's what we know. That's what we're
Yeah.
familiar with. So to imagine a reality without that core identity in the middle of it, it's impossible. I've heard Adyashanti say, I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me, Adyashanti, but he said something to the effect of, I have yet to meet the person who said, oh, awakening is exactly what I imagined it to be.
I
It just
love
tends
that.
not to
Yes.
happen
Yes.
because we can't help but come from the point of view that, it's about us and it's for us and that we get something out of it. And I think this is something that Rick Weinman does beautifully. Rick Weinman is the founder of Vortex Healing. He's the head of our lineage. And he's written a number of books, but in his Awakening Through the Veils books, he does some beautiful work with sort of breaking down the illusions that we all have about what awakening will be like, and how our imaginings of how it's going to serve us and make us better. And the fact of the matter, it's a process that works through us. And so in a way, when that awakening process kicks in, the divine wants to bring itself home. So it will create the sense in our minds and our egos to go, 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 meditate, we'll do this, we'll get it, we can do this.
Yes.
And it's all a play to get us exactly where the divine wants us to be, and whatever path or whatever process is laid out for us. So within that, when you can recognize that, there's tremendous surrender.
Wow.
When you realize that you are actively engaged by a process that is much greater than you are.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Do you find also too that this gives people an opportunity to be more fully human by really embracing these particular issues, or the things that sometimes can get in our way as human beings? And
well, yeah, I think as soon as we can put our judgments down about our issues, it helps us to put our judgments down about other people's issues and all of that. And we can be more present to meet people. If we have managed to meet our own loss, for example, in compassion, then we're far more capable of meeting someone else's loss in that same level of presence and compassion. Instead of saying what we think is right or what we think they want to hear, or being uncomfortable with the whole thing, we can actually just, put it down and be presence. And at the end of the day, the presence is the master healer. It's just a willingness to be in the moment without agenda. That humanness becomes a beautiful thing.
yeah,
Not something that
absolutely.
needs to be managed or fixed because we were never broken. It's something that we can meet and enjoy and engage with life. And so that whole relationship changes, and our issues become a way of being present with all of that.
Yeah, in some ways, is this something that I know that in Western culture especially, self-improvement is such a big topic. Self-help and self-improvement. I get the sense, and I don't know, I'm open to being wrong. Is this actually something that is really beyond the realm of what someone would call self-improvement?
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by that. And I think there are some genuinely wonderful people out there doing really wonderful work under that title. And then there's a lot of, quick fixes. We all want a quick fix. That a lot of work tends to sell, unfortunately, to the person who believes that they're broken and needs to be fixed. And that's very often where we get desperate, and I'm including myself in this process. We get desperate. We want to try everything. That's part of being human. But the hopes with this work is that, people realize they're not coming to the table broken. It's an opportunity to recognize the human issues that we all have, and take that as an opportunity for growth and for finding the freedom. So, I think it depends how you frame that, but it's hard not to go there when you're in pain. You really need a safe space, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To meet your issues.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And then just in terms of giving folks a sense of, as this journey begins with this series, maybe anything that you might share in terms of what that first issue might be, and just how things will flow, with this series.
Yeah. I was thinking, and I've done this in the past, starting with the issue of shame.
Yeah.
Shame's a great issue. And I mean great in the sense that it's terrible. It's a universal issue. We all have it. And I like to start with it because it's an issue in which we hide, and it's an issue that hides other parts of ourselves. Shame is the thing that we don't even want to see. And shame often masks itself through a need to be perfect, or a kind of arrogance, or, shame has all sorts of different ways of hiding, and it's very hard to meet. It really needs a lot of love and compassion, and to be able to meet and work with that becomes a great reference point as I talk about other issues, referring back to the foundational work that we do with shame becomes key. Because shame
Yeah.
isn't really about something that you've done. It's about a belief of, what you are, that you don't feel, worthy of being loved in that way. Brene Brown has done some wonderful work around shame. And she was sort of an inspiration for that particular segment, and starting with that. We do many other issues. We don't just do there, but it's a good one to start with because it's universal and it holds us so deeply, and it needs some love.
Yes, I definitely agree. Absolutely. Thank you. And then I didn't know at this point, Lorraine, I believe that's all the questions that have been coming up intuitively through this process. And then having this conversation with you, I thought I would just basically open up the floor, so to speak, and give you time and space if there's anything else, if there's anything I've forgotten to ask, or anything that you feel moved to share about this that you would want people to know.
No, just that I'm really excited, and I'm really excited to share this process with you. We've been talking about continuing our meetings and inviting people. I think the richest dialogue comes out of sharing and giving people an opportunity to ask questions and offer feedback. Usually the best work comes out of that. So, hoping for a structure, we could open it up and invite some people into the Finding Presence dialogues about specific issues. And then I could offer healing, and then I could offer the guided meditation, which is a way of getting awareness in, and then, a healing. So I would just invite anyone who's curious to learn more, come to my website, LorraineGoldbloom.com. You can email me directly at lg@LorraineGoldbloom.com. And I'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to sort of continue, work on this Finding Presence series. And I hope we have more events and such like that going forward. It's been a very profound process for me as I continue on. We're never a finished product. It's been a very humbling process for me, recognizing, okay, I have this on this level, but going back, I actually also have it on this level and that level and that level, and I think there's a recognition that so long as we're in form, we're never finished.
Oh my gosh,
in the sense that we're done with our issues, but that's okay. We don't have to be completely done with our issues. We just have to recognize them for what they are and be open to what's beyond the experience of that issue. So I hope, that this will continue for a good, long time to come, and we'll just have to see where the journey takes us.
Absolutely. Looking forward to going on that journey with you. Thanks so much, Lorraine. This has been wonderful, and really look forward to it.
Thank you, Jeff. This has been great. It's always good to see you and share this time with you.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Great to see you.
Take care.